ET now has completed 16 years tracking market, economy and banking sector in particular. And today I have with me a veteran in the banking industry, chairman of the largest bank of the country. Yes, I am talking about Mr. C.S. Setty, chairman SBI. Mr. Setty, welcome to ET now and thank you for taking out time to speak to our viewers. My first question will be on 16 years of banking. You have been associated, but before that, I want to ask you, what happens in the next 16 years in 2041? What all things we can imagine SBI doing? Government already has a vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047, and how will SBI participate in that?
First of all, congratulations to you as well as ET now on completing 16 years of providing a lot of insights into the economy, banking, and my compliments to the channel on this, and I hope this will continue for several years to come. We will continue to enjoy the relationship also. 16 years, of course, is not a very long time in the country's journey.
Right.
While probably the 16 years also will be a critical part of our country's journey. When we talk about Viksit Bharat, the country becoming economically developed country by 2047 is our vision. SBI is going to play a phenomenal role in this. It is not only in terms of our legacy of more than 200 years, our engagement with the economic development post creation of State Bank of India. Incidentally, it is 70th year of formation of State Bank of India Foundation. So this journey is intertwined with the economic development of the country. So I'm sure that SBI will continue to play that role in the changing landscape and the long-term story of India's development. I think that is what one limited point I would like to make. But in terms of the changes, I think the financial services landscape is very rapidly changing. If you see, 16 years is a long time to predict. While economic development of the country is broadly, we know that where do we want to head and what are those elements which contribute to that. But the financial services will be completely different. It is already happening, right?
Right.
It is more customer-centric now, and the financial services is no more only banking. It predominantly is moving towards alternatives like mutual funds, pension, insurance. So my take on next 16 years is that banks will have to mobilize more and more household savings, but they will be able to do it only when they are innovative in reaching to the customers.
Right.
While the processes, products, technology, most of them will get commoditized. There is no differentiation between one bank and another. But what is going to be the differentiator is that how well you are treating your customer, how well the customer is trusting you, and what kind of services intuitively we are making. Today in e-commerce, for example, is more of a hyper-personalization. I think banking also is already moving there, and I think more intense way of doing hyper-personalization. We would not only be taking the deposits. My view is that we will be doing a portfolio management in a big way, and wealth management and also premier banking across the geographies, not necessarily metro and urban areas. I see that a lot of wealth creation is going to happen in the rural areas. Agriculture focus, SME focus is going to give ample opportunities to the banking industry.
Yes, definitely. You just mentioned about customer-centric approach. In your report, you have clearly mentioned operational efficiency, customer-centric approach, and risk-adjusted growth is your strategy. I want to understand from years to come, how will SBI implement this strategy?
I did mention earlier also, Ankur, that in SBI, if a growth rate of 10 to 12% balance sheet growth, which is eminently feasible for SBI, we add one State Bank of India to ourselves every 6 to 7 years. So these kind of volumes, what we are looking at, business volumes, customer growth rates, we open around 65 to 70,000 savings account every day. And these sort of volumes cannot be handled unless we bring the operational efficiency. What we have done in the last decade or so is in terms of investing in technology, digitalization, is a classic example how we have become more customer centric. While we have reimagined the customer journeys, many of our internal processes are complicated. They're not simplified to the extent what they should have been. Well, customer journeys are simplified, which means that there are a lot of redundancies in the operations of the bank. The way our staff engage with the customers internally and externally, how do we simplify this? So my focus in the last 7 to 8 months is to articulate this requirement of simplification of the procedures and bring the operational efficiency. And once you bring that operational efficiency in customer onboarding, customer interactions, transactions, and your own processes, back office. So these efficiencies are going to be customer-centric, customer service-oriented efficiencies also will be brought in. I think they go hand in hand, not necessarily that they need to be pursued individually. So as far as risk-focused or growth rate is concerned, we have again in the last decade we have invested improving our underwriting standards, and the risk assessment, risk appreciation is much better now in the bank. And despite whatever growth rates we have achieved, you would be surprised, you might have seen the numbers also last financial year. We are one of the best in terms of the risk-weighted assets. If you see our return on risk-weighted assets is almost 2%, while we keep talking about ROA, for a bank which is operating at this scale, the better indicator would be how am I managing the risk in terms of containing the risk-weighted assets while continuing to focus on the growth and profits. So this trend will continue, and we will be adopting more and more newer technologies, reskilling our people, so that while we continue to grow in various segments, agriculture, SME, corporate, retail, we will be using our underwriting processes, more and more improved process to bring that risk into focus.
Right, you mentioned about scale, you mentioned about profitability. Let me rewind to 2009, 16 years back. In FY 2009, the net profit of State Bank of India was around 10,000 crore. And today we are talking about rupees 1 lakh crore profit, which State Bank of India is aiming at in near term. I want to now understand with you the scale, strike rate as we call it in cricket. We have talked about 10,000 crore to rupees 1 lakh crore journey, which is almost visible now at least. Now the strike rate will be even better, meaning the next 1 lakh crore will happen in even shorter frame of time.
See, the objective of State Bank of India, the absolute amount of profit, you can always outdo every year. What we are currently focusing is on the profitability. In fact, what the idea which you mentioned, and I did articulate in our annual report also, is that the profitability is a function of your operational efficiency, credit underwriting, cost reduction, and ability to mobilize low-cost CASA. I think these are all combinations which is going to improve your profitability. Profit is a function of your growth rate, your scale. At our scale, I assume that any number is a feasible one. The downsides of any banking journey has been mostly on the loan loss provisions. How do you contain that loan loss provisions? SBI, I think broadly we have understood how do we contain our risk, unless of course there are economic cycles. The cycles, nobody can be immune to the cycles. But we are better positioned to handle the cycles, which means that today our operating profit to net profit conversion has significantly improved over the years. That is how you see the absolute amount of profit going up. But our focus is not only in terms of achieving whatever number you mentioned, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, eventually we will be there. But do we grow profitably to that number? And do we grow carefully? And do we also contribute in the process to the, strengthening the various commitments what we normally do for priority sector and the overall economic policy? I think this is the bigger role State Bank of India has to play, apart from focusing only on the profit. Profit is obviously is important for us, but I think the numbers, any number can be achieved by SBI. It is only in terms of what the larger picture, what is the purpose of this organization, is something what we continuously debate and define here.
In the annual report, you have mentioned 7.5% target for this green sector by 2030. I want to understand from you, what is the exposure currently and how do you plan to scale it up further?
So before I answer your question in terms of the numbers, Ankur, I think this sustainability, the way India is pursuing this sustainability agenda, is not a mutually exclusive agenda of development versus sustainability. I think what India believes is a sustainable development, and we have I think clearly articulated commitments in terms of NDCs, in terms of net zero commitments. So what we have aligned, our goal of greening our portfolio is to look at what are the country's requirements in terms of growth. How do we align nation's objectives in terms of net zero or NDC, and how we take part in this journey. So while we have a slightly advanced net zero commitment for ourselves, like we said that we'll become net zero by 2055 when SBI foundation of 100 years is celebrated in that year, while the country is looking at 2070. As part of this agenda, we have said that, okay, why can't we have a defined goal of greening our portfolio? This portfolio greening cannot be a forced objective. I think we are moving and aligning with the nation's objective when we are looking for increasing our renewable energy, green energy, and sustainable portfolio. How do we align that? So if you see, currently we have about 70,000 crores portfolio, which is green. And this is tremendous growth. In fact, we have year-to-year growth of 55% in the last year, which means that we are moving rapidly towards the objective of 7.5% portfolio being green by 2030, which means that in absolute terms, we need to have, with the current credit growth rate, around 6 lakh crore portfolio would be green by 2030. It's almost 10 times of what we currently have. And with the annual growth rate what we witness, we may not repeat every year 55%, but we have an ample potential and ample opportunity to ensure that this greening is undertaken.
So the ambitious target of around 6 to 7 lakh crore by 2030, and of course when I'm doing a scale check of 2040, it is going to be much more than that. But coming back to the focus on digital front, you mentioned about the priorities of State Bank of India. Right before COVID-19 started, your bank was focusing on YONO. Now YONO 2.0 is something which is keenly awaited. And also I want to know, in a longer horizon, there was one plan that other banks will also be able to use this platform. Is that plan still on track?
First on YONO 2.0, of course, I did do a bit of conversation on this point earlier also. YONO 2.0, while it is being pursued, we have continuously invested in YONO 1.0. If you see, a lot of features have been added, a lot of facilities have been added, and our customer acquisition on YONO continues to be robust. YONO 2.0 is a very paradigm shift from what we have pursued. So that is also one of the reasons why the delays are happening in terms of rolling it out. it is an omni-channel one. When we talk about digital transformation, it is truly transformative. I don't know anybody really attempted that at this scale, where we are planning to have a uniform code, a single code across internet banking, mobile banking, branch channel, even bringing our feet on street, the people who go and procure the accounts or home loans in a same customer experience. This is something what we are trying to achieve there. And along with that, customer journey is being reimagined and make uniform across the omni channels. We are also investing heavily into making it resilient and future ready and future proof in terms of its resilience and capacity to handle the volumes as we grow. That is on the 2.0. But in terms of the digital transformation what we are undertaking, the journey of transformation will continue. Our idea is, again, coming back to the operational efficiency, the adoption of new age technologies like artificial intelligence. In many areas, we have identified some core functions which can adopt AI and move. Like, for example, one simple use case what we have rolled out, are rolling out, which operationally will be very accretive, is how do you predict the cash requirement across the ATMs? Wow. During the day, during the week, and during the month, and which geographies the cash outages will be more at what particular time. So this will give you cash management optimization. So this is done through the AI. We are just having the data for the last 2-3 years, and then arrive at the model that which ATM actually needs replenishment at what time. Instead of waiting for the replenishment to come, proactively you can do that. And there are several use cases which we are using. So I think our focus continues to be more in terms of providing the excellent customer service, transformation, and the way your channels are transforming, in terms of the digitalization, graphics. I think there are many things what in the banking space also we can do.
State Bank of India has not only been growing itself, but also helping others in the time of distress. We saw in the time of Yes Bank that you did give your helping hand when it was actually required, but now you have recently sold your stake in Yes Bank, meaning the term sheet is already clear, who is buying is clear. Why I'm asking this question? First, I want to understand the intent behind it, because whenever we have asked before, we have been told that it is under consideration or will be told later. One of the most asked question after when and why Katappa killed Bahubali was, when will SBI exit X Bank? Now it has happened. What is your view?
So I think, yes, you are right. I think it was a very well thought out restructuring of ensuring that the banking industry in India remains stable, and the headwinds are not allowed to become systemic, were not allowed to become systemic. And SBI definitely had played an important role in this, guided by the regulators and the government of India. It's been almost 5 years, and bank has stabilized now, and we all believe that there needs to be a strategic player. Obviously, a bank like SMBC can provide the capital needs, can take care of the capital needs of S Bank, and provide the strategic direction, and take the bank to the next level. I think it's an inflection point for S Bank, and more than anything, I think that was the reason why this transaction has been undertaken. I'm glad that it has reached a stage where it is progressing now, and we'll have to await the regulatory clearances there. Finally the
answer is there.
The answer is there now, and so you don't have to wait for the part 2 of this, and now the things are clear about it.
So why did the Katappa kill Bahubali? Why SBI has sold its stake in Yes Bank, but you still continue to hold a stake. Will you continue to do so for a longer period of time? What is the strategy there?
No, I think the income, when the SMBC wanted to have 20%, obviously all the banks which were part of the restructuring had to participate in this later part of exiting also. This is precisely what we have done now, which means that all of us hold some more stake. Some stake continue to hold them. So there is no restriction on holding at what period and all. I think individual boards of the banks can take the call whether they stay invested or they can exit.
But there is no regulatory guidance on
There is no
per
regulatory
se.
guidance on that.
Moving on, one of the other questions which has been asked in the banking industry has been the margin pressure. You have demonstrated resilience in maintaining as per your guidance. I want to understand in this year particularly, how do you plan to navigate that?
So on the annualized basis, I think we still be able to navigate better. There will be some quarters where the margin pressure will be evident, because the way the assets and liabilities of the banks move, with much of the book linked to the repo for many banks, and obviously the margin pressure will be there till the liabilities also get repriced. In our case, probably the pressure will be a little less. I'm not saying that margin pressure will not be there, because our repo linked book is slightly lower than the industry players. We have about 29% repo linked, which immediately get repriced. But if you have seen, the monetary transmission not only has to happen through asset repricing, it has to happen through the deposit repricing also. It is inevitable, right?
Right.
Particularly on the MCLR side, if the rates have to come down, some readjustment, recalibration of the deposit rates have to happen, which we have done, many banks have undertaken, including SBI, which means as we go forward. So on an annualized basis, I think we are still will be in a better position to navigate this.
Now I want to ask few questions to Mr. C.S. Setty, not just as chairman of State Bank of India. When you were 16-year-olds, what were your aspirations at that time? What were your hobbies at that time? And do you still carry the same?
A very tricky question, but I think 16 years, yes, I think it was a period where I was in a small town doing my 12th class, I think. So in those days, for everyone, the dream was to become a doctor, because I did biology. And I made an attempt to become a doctor. I did not make it. So as a 16-year-old, the priority was how do we clear the exams and also become a doctor. So, but the destiny takes a different route, and there are no regrets. I think it's been a good journey all along. So for a small town or small village child to make this journey and be here, and somebody was mentioning that there are more people who have climbed the Everest than becoming a CEO of Fortune 500 company. So
definitely,
to that extent, I think I've been extremely fortunate, and it also shows the level playing field the country provides to people, and also institutions like State Bank of India provide.
Right. What does Mr. Setty do in his free time?
I spend more time with my family, of course, and I watch movies.
Interesting.
I'm an avid movie watcher, and the whole family, of course, is a movie buff family, and we enjoy all genres of movies. I catch up with a bit of reading. In fact, I was a very strong reader of fiction, and I remember my father told me that, why do you want to read all this stuff? Then he extracted a promise from me that for every fiction I read, I also will read something non-fiction. I continue to do that. Of course, I read more non-fiction now than the fiction itself. So it's a combination of watching movies, spending with my family, and catching up with my reading.
So an aspiring doctor, moviegoer, and now a renowned banker. My last question to you, any song which you would want to dedicate to 16 years of ET now, and also the growth story of State Bank of India?
Movie song, is it? Okay. I think, there is One of the most philosophical songs, I believe, which may or may not have relevance to the context, is we are perpetual seekers. Like you are a seeker, I'm a seeker. My favorite song in that context is Kohre taal mile nadi ke jal mein, nadi mile sagar mein, sagar mile kaun se jal mein. This existential problem is something I think we all are perpetual seekers, and in this journey itself is more exciting than the destination, I believe. Let us continue in this journey.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, and of course, the journey is more important than the destination. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Setty, for joining us in this special week for us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.